Over the weekend, the NAACP issued a travel advisory for the U.S. state of Florida. They now join two other civil rights groups in warning potential tourists that recent laws and policies championed by Governor Ron DeSantis and Florida lawmakers are, quote, openly hostile toward African American people of color and LGBTQ plus individuals.
We say very clearly in the state of Florida, we will fight the woke in the legislature, we will fight the woke in education, we will fight the woke in the businesses. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Our state is where woke goes to die.
That was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis last month. Now, the NAACP has joined the League of United Latin American Citizens and Equality Florida in issuing travel advisories for the Sunshine State.
We should not use race or othering as a tool to weaponize against people. And unfortunately, for a large percentage of the Floridians, that's what he has done. Therefore, we are advising African Americans and others that if you travel to Florida, beware.
The warning was approved Saturday by the NAACP's Board of Directors. It tells tourists that before traveling to Florida, they should understand the state, quote, devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African Americans and other communities of color. Following the announcement, several of Florida's mayors were quick to say that their cities were welcoming. Everyone is always welcome and will be treated with dignity and respect, tweeted Mayor Ken Welch of St. Petersburg. A similar message was echoed by the mayor across the bay in Tampa. I can absolutely assure anyone and everyone considering a visit or move to Tampa that they will be welcomed with open arms, tweeted Mayor Jane Castor. The NAACP's decision comes after the DeSantis administration rejected the College Board's Advanced Placement African American Studies course back in January. DeSantis and Republican lawmakers have also pressed forward with measures that ban state colleges from having programs on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as critical race theory, and also passed the Stop Woke Act that restricts certain race-based conversations and analysis in schools and businesses.
The fact that African Americans certainly are dying, that our history is being erased, and that we are shown to have little value is not a stunt to us. The fight for our very lives is obviously at the top of the agenda.
In its warning for Hispanic travelers considering a visit to Florida, LULAC cited a new law that prohibits local governments from providing money to organizations that issue identification cards to people illegally in the country, and invalidates out-of-state driver's licenses held by undocumented immigrants, among other things. Florida has also made efforts recently to limit discussion on LGBTQ plus topics in schools, removed books with gay characters from school libraries, banned gender-affirming care for minors, and placed new restrictions on abortion access, and introduced a law allowing Floridians to carry concealed guns without a permit. Florida is certainly getting a lot of negative attention these days. Joining us now to discuss more is Dr. Calvin John Smiley from Hunter College City University of New York. Professor, both the NAACP and LULAC have issued travel advisories for the state of Florida. Do you think this is warranted?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very symbolic, right? I think that these types of calls are symbolic and indicative of what's happening in our political arena down here in the States, and that it's important to have that sort of acknowledgement that, you know, Governor DeSantis and other Florida policymakers are creating really hostile environments for a whole bunch of minority folks in the state.
Part of the concerns have been centered around the DeSantis administration's rejection of an advanced placement African American Studies course. Why are programs like this important to have across the U.S.?
Sure. When we think about education can't just be from the lens of the oppressor or from the majority dominant group. They have to come from the lens of all perspectives in America and all places around the world that have colonial histories need to express those histories and those experiences, not only from the kind of top-down perspective, but also from the bottom up. And that's why things like critical race theory and other educational programs that come from ethnic studies are really important because they add to the histories instead of the erasure of histories that DeSantis and others want to do. One thing that I find really fascinating with DeSantis and many of the conservatives in the states is that they pivot themselves, or position themselves rather, in this way that you can be whatever you want as long as you don't talk about it. Right. And so that is really a scary thing to think through, that, yeah, they're not going to say you can't be Black. You just can't talk about what it means to be Black.
It's hard to see these kinds of laws being made after it feels like they've already been fought for. So what do you say to the groups being targeted by these new aggressive laws that we're not just seeing in Florida, but countrywide? Yeah,
sure. It's a fight that has to be fought. As you said, it's something that seems to have already been done. And even the NAACP giving these warnings, it's very much reminiscent of the Green Book, which came out in the 1930s, which explained to Black motorists traveling, particularly in the American South, where they could stay, where they could stop, what was hostile, what wasn't. So to have the NAACP, one of the oldest and most renowned Black organizations in America, give this warning, it's very eerie that history is repeating itself. And what I'd say is that, we have to fight. We have to challenge policies and do everything we can to thwart these types of changes, because we have to remember, Florida isn't a white state, right? There's over 3 million people that live in the state of Florida. I believe it's something like Black folks make up 15% of the population. So we can't just say, oh, we're never going to go to Florida again, or we're going to just boycott Florida, because that will leave many folks behind and feeling that the rest of us don't care about them. So we have to actively challenge these types of laws and push back in every way we can, whether that's through the courts or in the streets.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Calvin John Smiley.
All right. Have a good one.